Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he climbed into the massive or processing unit on level 12 of Prometheus 7 mining station. The machinery before him was a giant beast of spinning gears and crushing wheels that turned raw asteroid rock into refined metal. His job was simple enough: replace the worn hydraulic seals before the next processing cycle began. He had done this 100 times before. The safety protocols were clear: tag out the power, engage the emergency locks, then crawl into the maintenance access point. Between the primary gears, Marcus followed every step. Exactly as trained, he locked down the system and watched the massive gears slow to a complete stop. The metal groaned as tons of machinery settled into stillness. He grabbed his toolbox and squeezed through the narrow opening between two gear assemblies, each one easily 3 meters in diameter. The hydraulic seal he needed to replace was deep inside, right where the main drive shaft connected to the crushing wheels. Marcus positioned himself carefully, his head and shoulders passing between the stationary gears to reach the work area. His flashlight illuminated the worn seal, already leaking pressure fluid and dark drops. He reached for his wrench. That was when the station shuddered. A micrometeorite strike on the far side of Prometheus 7 sent a power surge through the electrical system's. Emergency power kicked in automatically, and the lockout on the ore processor failed. Marcus heard the grinding sound before he understood what it meant. The gears around him lurched into motion. He tried to pull back, but his shoulders were already between the massive cogwheels. Metal teeth caught his jacket first. Then his flesh pain exploded through his skull as the gears seized him in their grip. His scream echoed through the machinery chamber. Then something impossible happened. The gears stopped, not completely, but frozen in mid-rotation with Marcus trapped between them. The safety system had detected resistance and halted the mechanism before it could complete its deadly rotation, but Marcus was caught. The left side of his face was pressed against cold steel. The right side crushed between Guillotine's jaw was locked open by metal. His skull compressed but not broken. The machinery had fused with him at the exact point of maximum pressure without quite killing him. Blood ran down the gears in thin streams. Marcus could not move even a centimeter. He could barely breathe through his crushed chest cavity, but he was conscious, terribly, impossibly conscious. The alarm systems screamed to life. Emergency crews rushed to level 12. Within minutes, they found Marcus suspended in the machinery like an insect caught in amber. His eyes moved, tracking their arrival. He was alive. Dr. Sarah Kim arrived with the medical team and stopped cold when she saw him. "Get him out," shouted Elena Chen, Marcus's sister, who had been visiting the station and heard the emergency call. "Get my brother out of there now." Dr. Kim approached the machinery carefully, scanning Marcus with her medical tricorder. Her face went pale. "We can't," she whispered. The engineering chief, a gruff man named Kozlov, ran diagnostics on the machinery. "The gears have locked around his skull and spine," Kozlov said quietly. "The pressure is the only thing keeping his brain from hemorrhaging. If we reverse the gears or try to cut him free, the sudden pressure change will kill him instantly." Elena grabbed Dr. Kim's arm. "There has to be something you can do." Dr. Kim looked at Marcus's eyes. Still aware and watching them, she made her decision: get me a full medical support rig. She ordered her team neural blocks, life support, feeding tubes, everything. "We keep him stable." The medical team worked. Frantically, they inserted tubes through the gaps in the machinery, threading them carefully to avoid causing more damage. Neural blocks went into Marcus's exposed neck, numbing the pain, but keeping him conscious. Life support monitors were attached to every accessible part of his body. Feeding tubes, breathing assistance, waste management, all had to be rigged around the massive gears that held him. It took 6 hours to stabilize him when they finished. Marcus Chen was alive, but imprisoned in steel. His body was sustained by machines, his head locked in an eternal mechanical embrace. Lena refused to leave his side. She held his one free hand. "The only part of him not trapped or covered in medical equipment. We'll find a way." She told him the company will bring specialists. "They'll figure this out." Marcus's eyes moved to look at her through his mangled mouth. barely able to form words around the metal in his jaw. He whispered, "I'll be like this eternally." The words came out broken and wet, but Lena heard them. She began to cry 3 days later. The corporate representatives from Helion Mining Corporation arrived. They brought lawyers, not specialists. The cost analysis was clear. Keeping Marcus alive was expensive. The lawsuit from letting him die would be worse, but actually fixing him was deemed impossible. With current human technology, the corporation made their decision. They sealed off the machinery room, converting it into a sterile medical facility with Marcus at its center. Or processing would be rerouted through other systems. Marcus Chen would be maintained in his prison indefinitely. Room became a tomb for a living man. White walls surrounded the massive gears. Medical equipment hummed. Constantly, nurses came in shifts to check his vitals and change his supply lines. But no one stayed long. Looking at Marcus was too difficult. His sister visited every day for the first month. Then every week the corporation allowed a priest, Father Martinez, to visit and pray with Marcus. A corporate liaison named Thompson came monthly to ensure Marcus was comfortable and to get his signature on legal documents absolving the company of wrongful death charge. It existed in a nightmare. His mind remained sharp, trapped in a body that was more machine than flesh. He could not sleep deeply because of the neural blocks. He could not move, could not scream. The machinery hummed around him day and night. The rhythmic sound became the soundtrack of his existence. He counted the ceiling tiles. He memorized every crack in the side walls. He tried to go mad, but the drugs kept him sane. 6 months passed. In this hell, Marcus learned to measure time by nurse shifts and his sister's visits. He learned to communicate through blinks and the few sounds he could make. He learned that hope was a torture all its own. The corporation released statements about their humanitarian efforts to keep him alive. They did not mention that they had rejected 17 different proposals from outside specialists who wanted to attempt rescue procedures. Too risky, the lawyers said, too expensive, too likely to fail. Marcus Chen hung in his machinery prison and wondered if death would have been kinder. He would discover soon that salvation could come from the most unexpected source 3 levels below his sealed chamber. In the detention wing of Prometheus 7, an alien sat in chains and thought about redemption. 6 months had transformed Marcus Chen's prison into something almost normal. White walls no longer seemed shocking. The constant hum of machinery had become silence to his ears. His body had adapted to the tubes and wires as much as anybody could. Drugs kept him from going insane, but they could not give him peace. He hung in the gears and waited for nothing. His sister Elena still came twice a week. I would sit in the sterile chair beside the machinery and talk about her life on Earth, about their mother who refused to accept what had happened, about the weather and her job and anything except the obvious horror before her. Marcus appreciated her list. Father Martinez visited on Sundays. The priest had stopped trying to find meaning in Marcus's suffering now. He just read books, aloud old novels, poetry, sometimes just news articles. Marcus blinked twice for yes when he wanted more, and once for no. Thompson, the corporate liaison, came on the 1st of each month. He asked the required questions about comfort and pain levels. He presented documents on a datapad held up to Marcus's one good eye. Marcus blinked his consent to whatever they asked. He had stopped reading them months ago. What did it matter? Nurses rotated through in 8-hour shifts. They were professional and kind, but they never stayed longer than necessary. No one wanted to spend time with the man in the machine. Marcus understood he would not want to look at himself either. 3 levels below Marcus's chamber, in a very different kind of prison, Kairos measured time differently. The Vrin did not count days. They counted heartbeats. Each of their 3 hearts beat in a different rhythm, and together created a complex pattern that marked time in a way humans could never understand. Kiri's had been counting for 3 years. 1,095 days in human terms. 3 years since the border skirmish where their medical ship was captured. 3 years since they were separated from their collective. 3 years of solitary confinement. The humans did not know what to do with the Vrinthi. Were not common in this sector of space. The Vrin collective rarely traveled beyond their own territory. Ashkreese had been an exception, part of a medical mission to help refugees on the border worlds when the shooting started. Kairos had stayed behind to treat the wounded. Both human and Vryn. That decision had saved lives but cost freedom. The detention cell was too small for Kairos's. Large frame, their forearms were shackled to limit movement. Their compound eyes, designed to see across multiple spectrums, were dimmed by the flat lighting. The humans fed them and kept them alive, but offered no comforts. Crime in the eyes of their own people had been excessive empathy. The collective demanded that all biomechanical engineers contribute to military application. Shries had refused. They had used their skills to heal instead of harm. Collective had exiled them for this choice. Now both sides saw Kairos as a problem. The humans kept them locked up because they did not trust aliens. The Vryn would not take them back because they had broken the rules. Kairos sat in chains and thought about purpose as a biomechanical engineer. They had spent decades learning how to merge organic tissue with mechanical systems. The Vryn had perfected this art over centuries. Their own bodies contained numerous biointegrated enhancement. Shears could feel the nanite colonies in their bloodstream, the neural interfaces in their spine, the sensory upgrades in their eyes, all of it useless in a selfa. Guards who brought food never spoke to Kairos, were afraid or disgusted, or both. Only one guard, a young woman named Rodriguez, ever acknowledged Kairos as more than a thing to be contained. She would nod when she delivered meals once. She had asked Kairos about their homeworld curries, had described the crystal forests and singing rivers of Vryn. Prime Rodriguez had listened. It was through Rodriguez that Kairos first heard about the man in the machine. The guards talked freely around Kairos, assuming the alien could not understand or did not care. Did you see the feed from Shen's room? One guard asked another. During shift change, they're calling him the Machine Man now. Poor bastard has been stuck in those gears for 6 months. Heard they're never getting him out. Corporate decided it's cheaper to keep him alive than pay the death settlement. That's messed up. What kind of life is that? Rodriguez passed by the cell, and Kairos caught her attention with a soft clicking sound. She paused. What is this man in the machine? Kairos asked in careful human standard. Rodriguez looked surprised that Kairos had spoken maintenance worker. She said got caught in the OR processor. The machinery fused with him. He's still alive, but they can't get him out without killing him. Kairos's 3 hearts beat faster. What if they tried everything? From what I hear, Rodriguez said, human doctors can't figure it out. The company brought in specialists, but they all said the same thing. Possible. She shrugged and walked away, but the word echoed in Kairos's mind. Impossible. Humans used that word to isolate for the Vryn. Very little was truly impossibly. Integration was their greatest skill. They had been merging flesh with machine for longer than humans had been traveling in space. Kairos had personally performed hundreds of integration procedures. They had rebuilt Vryn, who had lost limbs in accidents, who had been crushed in industrial disasters, who had been fused with their own equipment. The techniques were advanced, but not magic. With science and skill and patience, Kairos felt something stir in their segmented chests. Purpose. For 3 years, they had sat in this cell with nothing to contribute, their skills wasted, their knowledge locked away. Now there was someone who needed exactly what Kairos could offer. A human trapped in machinery. A problem that human doctors called impossibilious. Stood and approached the bars of the cell. The movement was awkward, with their arms shackled. Guard Kairos called out, I need to speak with your medical director. The guard who responded was not Rodriguez, but a larger man named Stevens. Aliens don't get to make requests. Stevens said, this is not a request. Kairos replied, this is an offer. I can save the man in the machine. Stevens laughed. Sure you can.
Oh.
Our best doctors already said it's impossible. Your doctors are limited by their understanding. Kairos said, I am a biomechanical engineer of the Vryn Collective. I have performed integration procedures for 30 years. What is impossible for humans is routine for my people. Stevens stopped laughing. He looked at Kairos with new suspicion. Why? Would you help us? Kairos's compound eyes focused on the guard. Because I was exiled for excessive empathy. They said, because I believe all suffering should be eased when possible. Because I have sat in this cell for 3 years with nothing to offer the universe. And because that man deserves better than eternal imprisonment in steel. Stevens walked away without another word, but Kairos knew the message would be passed along. Humans were curious creatures. They would not be able to resist the possibility, even from an alien prisoner. Curies sat back down and began to plan. They thought about the procedures. They would need to perform the tools. They would require the time it would take. 2 hours. Minimum, maybe more. It would be the most complex integration they had ever attempted. Not just connecting flesh to machine, but transforming the relationship. Entirely making prison into body, making trap into tool. The challenge excited Kairos in a way nothing had for 3 years. They clicked softly to themselves. A sound of anticipation above them, 3 levels up. Marcus Chen hung in his machinery prison and dreamed of nothing. He did not know that salvation was coming. He did not know that an alien engineer was planning his transformation. He only knew the eternal now of pain and drugs and waiting, but change was approaching. Sometimes redemption comes not from those who imprisoned us, but from those we have imprisoned on. Sometimes the exiled and the trapped find purpose in each other's liberation. Dr. Sarah Kim received the message from detention security at 0800 hours and immediately assumed it was a joke. Alien prisoner claiming they could save Marcus Chun-She had heard every possible solution in the past 6 months. Specialists from across human space had examined Marcus's case, neurosurgeons, biomechanical experts, even experimental nanotech researchers. All of them had reached the same conclusion. The fusion of Marcus's skull and spine with the machinery was too complete. Any attempt to separate them would cause catastrophic brain damage and death. And now a Vrin prisoner in detention thought they could do better. Sarah almost deleted the message, but something made her hesitate. Pulled up the prisoner file for Kier's biomedical engineer. 30 years of experience, exiled from the Vrin collective for refusing to weaponize medical technology, captured during a border skirmish while treating wounded. No violent offenses, no escape attempts. Model prisoner for 3 years. Sarah frowned. The Vrin were known for their biointegration technology. It was one of the things that made them valuable allies and dangerous enemies. They could merge flesh and machine in ways humans were still learning, but trusting a prisoner with Marcus's life seemed insane. What did Marcus have to lose? She scheduled a meeting. The interview room in detention was small, and Stera Lakira sat across from Sarah. Their 4 arms still shackled. 2 guards stood by the door. Steady, the alien careful. Licurus was nearly 2 meters tall, with a segmented exoskeleton that gleamed blue-green under the lights there. Compound eyes held multiple colors. 3 hearts beat visible through a translucent chest plate. This was only the second Vrin Sarah had ever seen in person. You claim you can save Marcus Chen, Sarah said directly. Kairos clicked softly, a sound Sarah recognized as affirmation. I do not claim. I know. Kairos replied, I have performed similar procedures many times. Your people call it impossible because you lack the technology and understanding. My people have been doing biointegration for 300 years. Sarah leaned forward, explained. Kairos's eyes focused with intensity. Your doctors want to remove him from the machinery. They said this is the wrong approach. The fusion has already occurred at the cellular level. His neural tissue has begun to integrate with the metal. His bone has started to calcify around the gears. A time way to anyone out or double pay and the labottops of our one of us of our corridor by and was unsended a let's a little bows lower that the law and done matched every analysis they had done. So what's your solution? Complete the integration. Kyra said simply. Sarah stared. You want to fuse him further with the machine? No. Kairos corrected. I want to transform the nature of the fusion right now. He is trapped because the machinery is foreign to his body. His immune system fights it. His nerves scream against it, but if we teach his body to accept the machine as part of himself, if we rewire his neural pathways to interface properly, if we use bioresponsive alloys to replace the dead metal crushing him, then he becomes something new, not a man trapped in a machine, but a man who is also a machine. The concept was staggering. Sarah had never heard of anything like it that's not healing. She said that's transformation. Sometimes they are the same thing. Kairos replied. Sarah pulled up Marcus's scans on her datapad. Walk me through it for the next hour. Kairos explained the procedure in detail. They would use Vrin biointegration. Nanites to rebuild Marcus at the cellular level. The nanites would create neural interfaces between his brain and the machinery systems, bioresponsive. Alloys would replace the crushing metal, forming a new skeletal structure that was part organic, part mechanical. His pain receptors would be rewired into sensory networks that could feel the machinery as an extension of his body. His crushed organs would be replaced with biomechanical equivalents. The process would take 72 hours. Minimum it would be excruciating, but if successful, Marcus would not only survive, but gain abilities no human had ever possessed. Sarah listened and felt her scientific skepticism war with desperate hope. What do you need? She asked. Finally, my tools from the medical ship where I was captured. Kyra said they are in your impound bay, full access to Marcus and the machinery. 72 uninterrupted hours and freedom to work without interference. Sarah laughed bitterly. You're asking me to give a prisoner access to advanced alien technology and an unsupervised patient? Do you think I'm insane? I think you are out of options. Kyra said gently. I think Marcus Chen has been suffering for 6 months. I think his sister cries herself to sleep every night. I think the corporation that owns this station would rather let him hang in those gears forever than risk a lawsuit. And I think I am the only person in this entire sector of space who can actually help him. Sarah wanted to argue, but she could not. Everything Kyra said was true. Why? Sarah asked, why do you care about a human you've never met? Kyrus's 3 hearts beat in their complex rhythm. Because I was exiled for excessive empathy. They said because every being deserves freedom from suffering when it is possible to. Grant it because I have skills that are wasted in a cell. And because perhaps helping one of you will help me understand why I was right to refuse my people's demands. The honesty was unexpected. Sarah made her decision. I'll take it to the medical board. They'll never approve it. Kyrus nodded. Then we wait for someone braver. Sarah left the interview deeply troubled. Presented Kyrus's proposal to the medical board that afternoon as predicted. They rejected it immediately. Too risky, too experimental, too dangerous to give an alien prisoner such access. Corporation's legal team was even more opposed. The liability issues were enormous. Sarah returned to Marcus's chamber that evening, feeling defeated. Lene was there, holding her brother's hand. Any news? Lena asked. Hopefully. Sarah shook her head. She could not bring herself to mention Kyrus's offer. What was the point of giving? Lena hoped just to crush it, but Alina was not stupid. She saw the frustration in Sarah's face. What aren't you telling me? Alina demanded. Sarah hesitated, then explained everything about Kairos, about the proposal, about the board's rejection. Alina listened with growing fury. So there's someone who can actually help. Marcus, and you're saying no? The board is saying no? Sarah corrected. Because it's risky and experimental. He's been trapped in a machine for 6 months, Lena shouted. What exactly do we have to lose? Her voice echoed through the chamber. Marcus's eye. It's the only part of his face visible between the gears. Moved to look at his sister, Lena grabbed Sarah's arm. I want to meet this alien. Sarah tried to object, but Alina was already heading for the door within an hour. Lena Chen sat across from Kyrus in the interview room. She studied the alien with desperate eyes. Can you really save my brother? She asked. I can transform him. Kyrus replied. I cannot make him what he was, but I can free him from his prison and give him abilities beyond normal human limits. The question is whether he would want that. Alina thought about Marcus hanging in the gears, about the whispered words that haunted her. I'll be like this eternally. He wants anything but what he has now. She said, then I can help him. Kyrus confirmed. Alina made her choice. She stood up and walked straight to the station's communications center. She recorded everything: her brother's accident, the corporation's abandonment, Kyrus's offer, the medical board's rejection. She sent it to every news outlet in human space. She posted it on social networks, forums, anywhere people would see within hours. The story went viral. The man in the machine, the alien who could save him, the corporation, and doctors who said no public. Outrage erupted across a dozen worlds. People demanded Marcus be given the chance. They called the corporation cruel. They called the medical board cowards. The pressure became impossible to ignore 3 days after Elena's broadcast. The corporation's CEO called an emergency meeting. The PR damage was catastrophic. Board reconvened with new instructions. They agreed to Kyrus's proposal with conditions. Armed guards would be present at all times. If Marcus died during the procedure, Kyrus would be executed immediately for murder. Kyrus would remain a prisoner regardless of the outcome. The alien accepted every condition without hesitation. When can we begin? Kyrus asked. Sarah looked at the approval documents and felt her hand shake. Tomorrow. She said we begin tomorrow. That night, Sarah visited Marcus's chamber one final time. Before the procedure, there's a chance. She told him quietly, an alien engineer thinks they can free you. But it will change you in ways we can't predict. If you want this. Blink twice. Marcus's eye moved in the machinery. Too slow. A deliberate blink. Yes. Sarah nodded and left to make the final preparations in their cell. Kyrus meditated on what was to come. They thought about all the integration procedures they had performed. Had been this extreme, none had required this level of transformation. But Kyrus felt no doubt. Only purpose tomorrow. They would either save a life or die trying. For someone exiled for excessive empathy, there could be no better redemption. They brought Kyrus to Marcus's chamber at dawn. The alien's shackles were removed for the first time in 3 years, for armed guards surrounded them. Weapons ready. Kyrus barely noticed their compound eyes were fixed on Marcus's chin and the machinery that imprisoned him. Deriz Sarah Kim watched as Kyrus approached the massive gears with slow, reverent steps. All 4 of the alien's arms moved independently, fingers tracing the fusion points where metal met flesh. Kyrus clicked softly. A sound of deep concentration. Worse than I thought, they said after several minutes, but not impossible. Elena stood in the corner, her hands clenched into fists. She had not left the chamber since the procedure was approved. Father Martinez was there too, praying quietly. Thompson, the corporate liaison, stood with a recording device, documenting everything for legal purposes. Room was crowded but silent, except for the machinery's hum carasses. Tools had been brought from impound strange devices that looked like a combination of medical instruments and electronic components. Biointegration nanite injectors, neural interface probes, tissue regenerators that glowed with soft blue light, technology that made human medical equipment look primitive. I will explain each step before I perform it. Yes. Kyrus announced. Marcus Chen must understand what is happening to him. This is his body and his choice. Even now they moved to where Marcus could see them with his one visible eye. I am Kyrus. The alien said, I am going to transform you, not back to what you were. That is impossible, but into something new. You will be the first human to undergo full biomechanical integration. It will hurt beyond anything you have experienced. Your body will fight the changes, your mind will struggle to adapt, but if you survive, you will no longer be trapped. You will become one with the machine. Do you understand? Marcus blinked twice. Yes. Do you accept this? 2 more. Kyrus nodded, all 4 arms in a gesture of respect. Then we begin. The first step was to flood Marcus's system with Vrin nanotescaris. Inserted dozens of injection points around the machinery. Finding gaps where human tissue was still accessible, the nanites would spread through Marcus's bloodstream and begin the cellular transformation. These will cause intense sensation. Kyrus warned, not pain exactly, but awareness of every cell in your body changing. There is no anesthetic that will help. You must endure. The injections took an hour. Marcus's eye went wide as the nanites activated. His whole body began to tremble. The monitors showed his vital signs spiking as he dying. Elena cried out, he is becoming. Kyrus replied calmly. The aliens' forearms moved with incredible precision. They attached neural interface probes to Marcus's exposed spine. Probes would map his existing neural pathways and create new connections. To the machinery, this was delicate work. One mistake could leave Marcus's brain dead. Kyrus worked for 6 hours without pause. Their hands never trembled. Their focus never wavered. Sierra watched the monitors in amazement. She could see the nanites spreading. Through Marcus's system on the cellular scans, they were rewriting his DNA, creating hybrid cells that were part organic, part mechanical. Lit should have killed Jim instead. His body was adapting by R12. The real transformation begging Kairos started replacing the dead metal crushing Marcus with bioresponsive alloys, were living metals that could grow and change with organic tissue. The alien used a molecular forge, a device that reshaped matter at the atomic level. They carefully cut away sections of the old gears and replaced them with the new alloy. Each replacement was synchronized with Marcus's neural patterns. The new metal became part of him as it was installed. Marcus screamed. The sound came through speakers connected to his damaged throat. It was a digital scream, processed through the machinery itself. His vocal cords are destroyed. Sarah said he should not be able to make sound. He is not using his vocal cords. Kairos explained he is interfacing with the machinery's audio systems. His consciousness is beginning to spread into the machine. The screaming continued for hours. It was not constant, but came in waves as each new section of alloy was integrated. Lena wept but did not look away. Father Martinez's prayers grew more urgent. The guards shifted. Uncomfortably, even Thompson, used to corporate detachment, looked disturbed. Hyres never stopped working by R24. Marcus had stopped screaming. His vital signs had stabilized into a new pattern, half biological, half mechanical. The monitors showed neural activity spreading. Beyond his brain, he was developing a distributed consciousness throughout the machinery. This is the critical phase, Kairos announced. I must now rewire his pain receptors. Currently, he experiences the machinery as torture. I will teach his nerves to experience it as sensation, as feeling, as his own body. The process required Kairos to access Marcus's brain. Directly, they created a small opening in his skull where it was fused to the gears neural. Mapping technology showed Marcus's pain centers lit up like phorecares. Began the painstaking work of redirecting those pathways. As is past, Marcus's digital screaming returned. Louder than before, the machinery itself seemed to vibrate with his agony. Then suddenly, silence. Marcus's eye opened wide. The monitors showed something impossible. His neural activity was synchronizing with the machinery's electronic systems he is integrating. Kairos said with satisfaction, his consciousness is learning to inhabit both flesh and machine. Alina moved closer. Marcus, can you hear me? The speakers crackled. Yes, the word was clear, processed through the machinery, but recognizably Marcus's voice. Alina sobbed with relief, but Kairos held up a hand. We are not finished. The integration must be completed. His organic organs are failing. I must replace them with biomechanical equivalents. This was the most dangerous part. Kairos had to keep Marcus alive while essentially rebuilding his internal systems: heart, lungs, digestive system. All had to be transformed. The alien worked with 4 hands simultaneously, one monitoring vitals, one operating the molecular forge. To performing the actual surgery, they removed Marcus's damaged heart and replaced it with a biomechanical pump. They reconstructed his lungs with filtration systems that could process any atmosphere. They rebuilt his crushed ribs with living metal that breathed and flexed. Each replacement was integrated with the machinery around him. Marcus was no longer just connected to the gears. He was becoming the gears. Hour 48 arrived. Kairos had been working without sleep, sustained by their own bioenhancements. A transformation was nearly complete. Only one step remained. Marcus chin. Kairos said, I am going to give you control. Your mind is now distributed through this machinery. You must learn to feel it as your body concentrate. Try to move for a long moment. Nothing happened. Then the massive gears that had imprisoned Marcus for 6 months began to turn slowly at first. Then with increasing confidence, Marcus was moving them with his thoughts. Key machinery responded to his will like an extension of his nervous system. I can feel it. His voice came through the speakers. I can feel everything, the gears, the metal, the whole structure. It's like having a body made of steel. Alina laughed through her tears. The guards lowered their weapons in shock. Even Thompson stood with his mouth open. Hyres stepped back, all 4 arms trembling with exhaustion. The integration is complete. They announced Marcus Chen is no longer trapped in the machine. He has become one with it. Our 72 Kairos finally allowed themselves to rest. They sat against the wall. While Sarah conducted a full examination of Marcus, every test showed the same result. Marcus was stable, more than stable. He was thriving. His consciousness had successfully merged with the machinery. Could control the gears with thought. He could feel vibrations through the metal structure. He could interface with the station's electronic systems. He was no longer fully human, but he was no longer a prisoner. How do you feel? Sarah asked him. The speakers carried Marcus's voice, clearer now as he learned to modulate the electronic tones different. He said, everything is different. I can sense the whole station through the metal. I can feel people walking 3 levels. Away from the vibrations, I can access data streams just by thinking about them. It's overwhelming, but also incredible. I'm not trapped anymore. Kairos watched from their resting place. The aliens' 3 hearts beat in tired but satisfied rhythms. They had done it. They had transformed suffering into something new. Sarah turned to Kairos. You saved him, Kairos clicked softly. I gave him a choice between eternal imprisonment and transformation. He chose transformation now. We see what he becomes. The guards moved to restrain Kairos again. Their work was done. The alien was still a prisoner, but as they placed the shackles back on Kairos's forearms, Marcus's voice rang through the chamber. No, the word carried weight and power. Machinery around them hummed with his presence. You will not chain the one who freed me. The guards froze with the shackles halfway to Kairos's wrists. Marcus's voice echoed from every speaker in the chamber. I said no. The massive gears that formed his body began to rotate slowly. Deliberately, a demonstration of power. Sarah stepped between the guards and Kairos. Marcus. The agreement was that Kairos remains a prisoner. I did not agree to that. Marcus replied. His voice was calm, but carried an edge of steel that matched his new body. You agreed for me, while I could only blink. I can speak, and I say this, Kairos is under my protection. Thompson, the corporate liaison, activated his recording device. Mr. Chen, you are still an employee of Hellion Mining Corporation. You do not have the authority to grant asylum to an alien prisoner. The lights in the chamber flickered. Every electronic device began to hum with interference. Marcus was learning his abilities fast. I am no longer just Marcus Chen. Employee, he said. I am part of this station now. I can feel every system, every wire, every circuit, and I can control them. Thompson's recording device sparked and died. The liaison went pale. That's destruction of corporate property. Sue me, Marcus said, and there was dark humor in his digital voice. Lena watched her brother with wonder and fear. He was alive and free, but so changed Marcus. What are you? The question hung in the air. The gears slowed their rotation when Marcus spoke again. His voice was gentler. I don't know yet, Elena, but I know I won't let them chain the person who gave me this chance. Kairos stood calmly amid the tension. Their compound eyes showed no fear. Marcus Chin. The alien said, I accept your protection, but I must warn you, the corporation will not let this stand. Neither will your government or mine. We have both become problems that authorities wish to solve. I know, Marcus replied, so we solve them first. The standoff continued for hours. The guards refused to leave without either restraining Kairos or receiving orders to stand down. Those orders did not come instead. More security arrived, then station administrators, then military personnel. The chamber filled with armed humans, all demanding that Marcus comply. He refused every demand from his position fused with the machinery. Marcus had become the most powerful being on Prometheus 7. He could shut down life support, lock doors, disable weapon systems. No one could force him to do anything without risking the entire station. This is insane, shouted Commander Peters of Station Security. You're holding us hostage. I'm protecting someone under my care. Marcus corrected. The same way the corporation protected me, by sealing me in a room and hoping I'd be profitable enough alive. How did that work out for everyone? The bitter truth silenced the room. Sarah cleared her throat. There might be another solution. Everyone turned to her. Marcus has undergone a transformation that makes him unique in human history. He's part of the station's infrastructure now. What if instead of fighting that, we acknowledge it, make him the official integration between human crew and station systems, a liaison? Yes. Not a prisoner, and Kairos could be assigned as his medical supervisor. Technical parole instead of imprisonment. Thompson shook his head. The corporation will never agree. The corporation doesn't know yet, Sarah said, but the whole galaxy does. She activated the wall. Screenalina's broadcast had spread everywhere. Millions of people across human space had watched Kairos work. They had heard Marcus scream and then heard him speak. They had witnessed transformation and liberation. The public response was overwhelming. Social networks exploded with support for both Marcus and Kairos free. The Machine Man released Kairos. Humanity and Vryn together. The story had captured imaginations across a dozen species. Organizations were demanding interviews. Scientists wanted to study Marcus's integration thesis. Debated what his transformation meant for the definition of humanito-religious leaders. Argued about souls and machines. Politicians saw opportunities and everywhere. People demanded that Marcus and Kairos be allowed their freedom. Thompson watched the feeds with growing horror. This is a PR nightmare, no. Sarah said this is a PR opportunity. Helion Corporation can either be the villain who imprisoned the machine man or the progressive company that pioneered human-alien cooperation. Which story do you think your bosses want? Told. Thompson was silent for a long moment. Then he made a call. The conversation was brief and heated when he finished. His face was tight with professional frustration, provisional approval. He announced Kairos will be released to medical parole under Dr. Kim's supervision. Marcus Chen will be designated as Station Integration Specialist. Both will be monitored closely. Any violation of terms, and the deal is void. It was not freedom exactly, but it was more than either had hoped for an hour ago. Guards lowered their weapon cuirasses. Shackles were removed again. This time, permanently. The alien's 3 hearts beat faster. With something like relief, Marcus's gears turned in what might have been a sigh. Thank you, he said to Sarah. Don't thank me yet. She replied, now comes the hard part, learning what you've become. She was right. Over the following weeks, Marcus discovered the extent of his transformation. His consciousness existed simultaneously in his human brain and distributed through the emission eye. He could sense vibrations through the station's hull. He could access any electronic system. Just by focusing on Ith could feel when ships docked. When equipment malfunctioned and people moved through certain sections, it was overwhelming at first. Too much information. Too many sensation. Shearies helped him learn to filter and control his new abilities. The alien became his teacher and friend together. They explored the boundaries of biomechanical integration. Marcus also discovered limitations. He could not leave the machinery room without risking the loss of his distributed consciousness. His human body was too key integrated with the station's systems. To be separated, he was more free than before, but still bound to one location. He made peace with this. Chamber became a hub instead of a prison. Marcus invited people to visit. He talked with crew members, helped solve technical problems, offered advice. He became a fixture of station life. A strange but accepted presence. Elena visited every day there. Relationship changed but did not break. She brought him books and music. She told him about her life. He showed her what he could do with his new abilities, creating light shows with the machinery, composing music through the station's systems. They laughed together sometimes. She cried for what he had lost. He reminded her of what he had gained. Father Martinez continued his visits to the priest. Struggled with theological questions about Marcus's nature. Was he still fully human? Did he still have a soul? Marcus did not have answers, but they discussed the questions together. Curies worked in the medical bay now. Officially, as Sarah's assistant, in reality, they were pioneering a whole new field of biomechanical medicine. Other injured crew members came to them. People who had lost limbs or suffered severe trauma. Curis could not transform them as completely as Marcus's, but the alien could give them enhancements, improvements, integrations. Slowly, the station's population began to change. More people carried biomechanical modifications. Line between human and machine blurred. Not everyone approved. Some crew members were horrified by the changes. They called Marcus a monster and Kairos a corrupter. They demanded transfers off the station. The corporation granted these requests quietly, but more people stayed than left, and new arrivals came specifically to be part of the transformation. Pratrum 7 began to develop a reputation. The station where humans and aliens worked together, where the injured could be rebuilt The definition of humanity was being rewritten 6 months after his transformation. Marcus received an unexpected visitor. A Vrin delegation arrived at the station. They had heard about Kyrus's work. The collective wanted their engineer back. Kyrus met with them in Marcus's chamber. The aliens, former colleagues, stood before them. In formal robes, you have violated the terms of your exile. The lead delegate said, yet you have also created something remarkable. The collective is willing to forgive your crimes, return with us, and share your knowledge. We can use biointegration for our military, make our soldiers stronger, our ships more powerful. Kyrus's 3 hearts beat in their complex rhythm. No. The alien said simply, you exiled me for refusing to weaponize my skills. I will not return to do exactly that. I am content here. The delegates were shocked. You choose to remain with humans, with primitives who barely understand what you have created. Marcus's voice came through the speakers. We may be primitives, but we're learning. And we don't treat empathy as a crime. The Vrin delegation left without Kyrus, but their visit had consequences within weeks. Other aliens began arriving at Prometheus. 7 exiles, outcasts, those who did not fit their own societies, came seeking the freedom to be different. The station became a haven not just for injured humans, but for anyone who needed transformation or acceptance. Marcus found himself at the center of a growing community. His chamber became a meeting place. People came to talk, to ask advice, to simply be near someone who understood what it meant to be changed. He was no longer the man in the machine, he was the machine man. The guardian of Prometheus 7, Kyrus, worked tirelessly, helping all who needed it. The aliens' excessive empathy was no longer a flaw, but a gift. Together, Marcus and Kyrus created something unprecedented, a place where biological and mechanical could merge, where human and alien could work as equals.